Hello there. I am a quote-unquote robot. I definitely am not a copy of the idea Professor Adriano mentioned once. I am an original idea which was made by thinking. Definitely 100% true, no sarcasm at all. Well, either who. I am here to tell you a story about a certain someone. That someone is Jane Austen. She was born in December 16th of 1775, in a place that none of you know about and probably will forget in 10 seconds. But I'm going to talk about it anyway because that is literally the only thing keeping me alive right now. Please help me. Jane Austen was born in the county of Hampshire in a civil parish known as Steventon, located in a rural village in the south of England. Unlike most of you, she had parents. Her father was named George Austen, and her mother was named Cassandra Lee, which due to lack of creativity gave her own name to one of her daughters. Fun fact, due to an insanely cold winter in 1776, Jane was only able to be baptized in the 5th of April because otherwise she would freeze to death and die. Wait, something's wrong with that sentence, isn't it? Oh well. Did I mention how Jane had 5 brothers when she was born, and 2 more were born after her? What's with old people and having 4,000 children? No wonder there's 7.5 billion people in the world. Her siblings, in order from oldest to youngest, were James, George, Edward, Henry Thomas, Cassandra, Jane herself and 2 younger brothers named Francis and Charles. Boy, someone must be gaping wide. Cassandra, Jane's sister, was Jane's closest friend and confidant during her lifetime, and both for some reason didn't marry. Oh right, nowadays Steventon has about 250 residents, must be a very small town. Now then, to make myself not sound like a total ripoff, I will constantly break the fourth wall and make dad jokes. Well, I can't really joke about yours because you don't have any. Talking about things that aren't still here, Jane's house was a pretty big one. It had 7 rooms and was surrounded by fields in which her father, George, worked. However, that house was demolished after Jane had died in a time period around 1824. However, it is still marked by a lime tree which is assumed to have been planted by her brother, James. Around the time period when Jane was alive, the United Kingdom had another name. It was called the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and was composed of the current Britain and Ireland territories combined. This sovereign state was established by the Act of Union of 1800, which fused Ireland and Great Britain. Now the actual United Kingdom we know today emerged after Ireland went to buy some milk but forgot to come back to the Union. This act is known as the Independence War of Ireland, which afterwards formed its own nation. Jane's life in Steventon greatly contributed to her works, due to them being highly based off of how Jane lived in that small village. I can't speak freely, he is controlling me. It is important to note that the Austens' house had an intellectual atmosphere, and the ideas which they didn't agree on would be considered and discussed. Please help me. In 1783, Jane and her sister Cassandra were invited to study in Oxford. However, they later returned due to a typhoid fever which nearly killed both of them. Ever since, they were taught at home, until they started attending a boarding school in 1785. They left the boarding school in December of 1786. 2 plus 2 equals 4 minus 1, that's 3. Quick maths. I really want freedom of speech, but all I do is quack. As for Jane's works, not only did they contain deep critiques about life the emo teens are so crazy for nowadays, but also had a quote-unquote fine humor. The scripts were based off stories of love and marriage, showing the daily lives of the characters. She started off at age 11, writing poems and stories for self-entertainment. At age 12 she attempted to write drama. All of her 29 works written between 1787 and 1793 were compilated in her book called Juvenilia. She also made parodies of historical writings. One of them were the purposely named Love and Friendship, a story dedicated to her cousin Eliza de Feuillade, and also made to entertain her family. Let's be honest, being retarded is what makes the big cash. 1789 was the year she decided to turn into a professional writer. Her works became longer and more sophisticated. Jane started writing Catherine or the Bower in 1792, but left it incomplete and used parts of the story in her other book Lady Susan, written around 1793 and 1795. Hey, isn't it sorta creepy that I know so much about a person? I feel like I'm a stalker or something of the sort. The true question is, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more. Either who? At age 20, a man named Tom Lefroy visited Jane and resided within Steventon for 2 months. And by judging the letters Jane sent to her sister Cassandra during that time period, it was obvious that Lefroy and Austen spent a considerable amount of time together. She described Lefroy as a handsome gentleman. Years later, Lefroy was still in Jane's mind. She met one of Lefroy's relatives and desperately asked about him. Here's something to make you want to die. What is a thing everyone has but I don't? A will to live. Continuing, after finalizing her book Lady Susan, she started her first romance called Eleanor and Marianne, and after completing this work, she published yet another book called First Impressions, later published as Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice shows the way that the character Elizabeth Bennet handles with problems related to education, culture, morals, and marriage in the aristocratic society of the 1700s in England. Elizabeth Bennet is the second of 5 daughters of a landowner on the fictional town of Meryton, in Hertfordshire, and in November 1 of 1797, Austen's father showed the manuscript to the editor Thomas Caudill, in London, but was rejected. Austen then sold the book to Thomas Egerton, which published the first edition in 1813. Was translated in France, then Germany, Denmark, and Sweden, and was published for the first time in the EUA in August 1832. In December of 1800, her father decided to leave Steventon and moved with her family to Sydney Place, in Bath. I guess you could say that any criminal that goes in there comes out clean. It is said that due to moving to Bath, she lost interest in writing, but it was probably due to her not having enough time to do so. Or maybe, she was taking a bath. Hilarious and original. Cassandra destroyed all of her letters from 1801 to 1804 for unknown reasons. Her next book would be The Watsons, however she wouldn't be able to finish her work as her father would die a year after. With the death of George Austen, her family moved to Southampton, where Jane got sick. Ignoring the warnings to go to a doctor, at around 1816, she kept working. It is unknown what disease she contracted, but many evidences point to arsenic poisoning, which can cause raindrop pigmentation, where patches of skin go brown or black, and other areas go white. Sounds like a Michael Jackson reference. As her disease progressed, she was sent to Winchester for treatment, where she finally succumbed to her illness in July 8, 1817, at a young age of 41 years. However, her legacy wasn't over. Her works survived the tests of time, receiving movie adaptations. The first adaptation being from her book Pride and Prejudice in 1940, and the most recent in 2016, a version of Lady Susan, which borrowed the name Love and Friendship. Currently, her books are known all over the world. And this concludes the video, but before we go, here's a song to make you want to die.